'Twas the night before Banquet, and all through Tom Philippi House, not a creature was stirring, not even Nathan Moss. All his textbooks were stacked on his desk with care, with the knowledge that exam week was drawing near. The boys in Ingersoll snuggled tight in their beds, the smell of Sussex wafting over their heads. The girls in JP were taking a nap, watching rom-coms and chick flicks. What a bunch of saps. Back to Ingersoll, where JR was stirring. Time was running out, his mind was a-whirring. A girl he needed, he had to think fast. He had waited so long, he was now the last. He needed a date, this was for sure. He needed some charm, something to lure. Would his good looks be enough? That was the question. Sophomore, junior, senior, or freshman. He awoke the next morning, bound and determined. After a quick prayer for courage and discernment, he set out to find the girl, the one he would ask. With 10 hours left, this would prove quite a task. He put on a suit, and he put on a tie. It was time to get going. It was his time to shine. He burst out of the door. He was ready to go. He had braved the cold winter and all of the snow. You see, he was from Florida, where it's nice and hot. Used to Canadian winters, he most definitely was not. His resolve faltered, and feeling the chill, so he put on a parka and boots before he went down the hill. Feeling much warmer, his confidence back, he was ready to pounce on the romantic attack. He spotted a girl from across the way. Could he be lucky? Would this be his day? He approached her shyly. At first he was timid, but then he saw her features so vivid. He checked his breath just to make sure. He'd forgotten to brush his teeth. His hygiene was poor. He retreated quite quickly. Ryan gave him some gum. On to plan B, he had failed at plan 1. Off to the library, he ran like a flash, except for, in his winter gear, he was not quite as fast. It was then that he saw her, the most perfect girl. Brown hair to her waist, her hair set in a curl. His mind flashed to Banquet that evening, that night. Could she be the one? Would she be Mrs. Right? He jumped to his feet, darted down the path, but she was far too beautiful. He had not done the math. He was a 3. She was at least a 7. Like an angel she looked. Had she fallen from heaven? Closer and closer he got to her face. Thoughts of engagement and marriage through his mind raced. Ring by spring, could it possibly be true? Free tuition for me, maybe even for you. He finished his sprint, falling to his knees. Hey beautiful, will you go to Banquet with me please? The girl cleared her throat, the answer was no. JR's vision apparently had been blurred by the snow. Because the girl was not a girl, it was actually Nathan Moss. He was already engaged. JR staggered at the loss. He trundled back to his room, sad and dejected. This was the 4th time this year that he had been rejected. To his mailbox, he slipped on some ice, looking for some mail from his mama, hoping for some advice. He opened his mailbox, but to his chagrin, his mailbox was empty. She'd forgotten again. It was then that it hit him, square in the face. A ping-pong ball from Laurel. His heart began to race. It had worked for Sarah and Nathan, so why not for him? Love from a ping-pong match? This is where it begins.
Hey, Laurel.
He asked.
Wanna ping some pongs?
He was ready this time. His resolve was quite strong. He decided to ask her, just go for the plunge. As the ball flew at him, he took the lunge. He tripped, but landed conveniently on one knee.
Will you go to Banquet with me?
It was then that Laurel began to cry. She'd never been asked so sweetly by a guy. But this was Kingswood, get real. Ring by spring, her no deal. JR reached in his pocket, feeling quite sly. He'd remembered a tip from Joey. What a nice guy.
Tip number 7, have a ring in your back pocket at all times. You never know when you might need it.
I've already asked your dad. I've got a ring at the ready. Along with Banquet, would you care to go steady?
From 0 to hero in no time at all. They'd be married in October. Sussex is beautiful in the fall. It was at this moment that JR awoke from his sleep. His room was a mess, his laundry in a heap. He had slept through the banquet. This story is a lie. See you next year, Kingswood. But for now, goodbye.
I'm sorry, this is too funny.